There's a bitter truth most people refuse to face. No one is coming to save you. Not your boss, not your partner, not your friends, not even future you. We live in a world that loves the idea of a savior, someone who will swoop in, hand, use the perfect opportunity, and lift us out of the struggle. But that savior never arrives, and the longer you wait for them, the further you drift from the life you could have built with your own hands. Here's another uncomfortable truth. The very things you fear, failure, rejection, discomfort, aren't your real enemies. They're the forge that shapes strength, the necessary fire that tempers you into someone unbreakable. The real danger is distraction. It's the hours you lose scrolling, comparing, waiting, and performing for people who don't even remember your name. The next day, that quiet theft of your attention is what kills dreams more than any failure ever could. And a third, truth one you might resist, is that comfort is a liar. It whispers to you that you've done enough, that tomorrow is fine, that slowing down won't matter. But comfort doesn't deliver peace. It delivers regret, the kind of regret that festers quietly until you can't ignore it anymore, the kind that gnaws at you in the silence of your own thoughts. Comfort is not safety, it's stagnation disguised as relief. These three realities cut against how most of us are taught to live. We're taught to wait, to fear failing, to chase comfort. That's why so many people never step into their full potential. But the Stoics, centuries ago, already knew better. They understood that the strength to live, well, doesn't come from waiting, fearing, or hiding. It comes from discipline, clarity, and the courage to keep walking when no one else believes in you. Welcome to Stoic Journal, where we strip away illusions and speak to the heart of what makes a person unshakable. This channel isn't about quick fixes or motivational sugar rushes that fade after 10 minutes. It's about the raw, enduring truths that you can apply every single day. Think of it as training your mind the same way you would train your body. Repetition, persistence, and honesty, that's what carves character. That's what gives you the strength to stand tall when life pushes hard against you. You might be listening because you feel restless. That restlessness is not a flaw, it's your compass. It's the signal that your life, as it stands, isn't matching the life you know deep down you could live. Maybe you're tired of postponing the things that matter. Maybe you're drained by the endless noise of other people's opinions. Maybe you've felt the sting of wasted time and know something has to change. That awareness is the spark. What you do with it is the fire dot in the pages of Stoicism. You won't find promises of ease. You'll find reminders that life is short, that obstacles are not barriers but pathways, that courage is moving forward even when fear clings to you. These lessons have survived for over 2,000 years because they still ring true in the chaos of modern life. Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, Epictetus, they lived in worlds full of distraction, fear, and uncertainty too. Yet they learned to master themselves, and that mastery gave them freedom. Freedom that you and I can still claim today. So before we dive into the journey ahead, make a vow not to me, not to anyone else, but to yourself. A vow to stop waiting for rescue. A vow to see failure as a teacher, not a tombstone. A vow to guard your focus as if it's the most precious resource you own, because it is. If you can make that vow and return to it each day, then what follows won't just be words, it will be a mirror, showing you the stronger version of yourself you are always capable of becoming. This is where it begins, not tomorrow, not when you feel ready, but now, because now is all you ever truly have. There's a reason this message feels so heavy. Deep down, you've always suspected it. You've felt the sting of waiting for someone to notice you, waiting for the right connection, waiting for the perfect time when everything would align. But the call never comes, the door never swings open, and the timing is never perfect. The realization that no one is coming to save you is both crushing and liberating. Crushing, because it shatters the illusion that you can lean forever on someone else's strength. Liberating, because it reveals the one truth that can set you free. You are responsible for your own life. The Stoics knew this. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this and you will find strength. The Emperor of Rome, with armies, advisors, and wealth at his command, still knew the danger of waiting on others to shape his destiny. If someone with all that power recognized the futility of waiting for rescue, how much more should we, in our ordinary lives, embrace the same truth? Modern society trains us to wait. From childhood, we're told that things will fall into place. If we follow the script, study hard, get the degree, find the job, stay patient, the system will reward us. But here's the problem. Systems don't care about your dreams. Employers care about productivity. Schools care about grades. Even family and friends, as loving as they may be, often see you through the lens of their own fears and limitations. No one, not even those closest to you, can fully carry the weight of the life you're meant to build. That responsibility is yours alone. Look at the way people approach their goals. How many times have you heard someone say, "I'll start when I have more time," or "I'm just waiting until things calm down," or "I'll feel ready after this season passes." But life rarely calms down. Seasons bleed into each other. New responsibilities pile on. The perfect moment is a myth, a mirage that keeps moving further into the horizon every time you think you're close. Waiting for rescue, whether from others or from the mythical future you, is one of the most effective ways to guarantee stagnation. This is why the Stoics spoke so often about urgency. Epictetus challenged his students by asking, "How long are you going to wait before you demand the best of yourself? Not next year, not next month now. Because every day you postpone is not neutral, it is lost forever." Seneca reminded us, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it." Think about that for a moment. Most of us live as though time is renewable. We trade hours for comfort, distraction, and approval, believing we'll make it up later. But you don't get later back. Every day spent waiting is a day you bury in the soil of regret. And yet, here's the paradox. Once you accept that no one is coming to save you, something inside you awakens. It's the same spark you felt when you finally stopped procrastinating and just began. The first workout after months of excuses. The first words written on a blank page you've avoided for weeks. The first step into a new job, a new skill, a new life. That spark is the truth reminding you. The door only opens when you knock. The path only clears when you walk. Rescue is not coming, but strength is. If you begin. In today's world, this truth is more urgent than ever. Think about the culture we live in. Entire industries are built on convincing you to wait for the next product, the next guru, the next system, the next piece of validation. Self-help influencers tell you to buy their program. Companies tell you their app will change your life. Politicians tell you to trust them with your future. But if you look closely, none of them can do the work for you. At best, they can provide tools. At worst, they sell you excuses. Either way, the burden remains the same. You must move. You must act. You must build. And this isn't just about achievement. It's about identity. Every time you wait, you reinforce the belief that you are powerless. Every time you act, you reinforce the belief that you are capable. Identity is not built by grand declarations, but by repeated choices. Each small action whispers, "I can rely on myself." Each delay whispers the opposite. The Stoics would tell you that your character, your virtue, is the only thing you truly own. Why hand it over to waiting? Let's ground this in modern life. Consider the person stuck in a job they hate, dreaming of starting their own business. They tell themselves they're waiting for the right time, the right savings, the right market. 10 years later, they're still waiting, and their dream has calcified into bitterness. Or the person who wants to get healthier, but waits for motivation, for the gym partner, for the Monday reset. Months pass, health declines, and the start never comes. Or the person who wants to learn a skill, coding, music, a language, but convinces themselves they're too busy, too old, too late. By the time they realize they could have been fluent, the years are gone. The tragedy isn't that their dreams were impossible. The tragedy is that they were waiting for someone or something to save them from the responsibility of beginning. But no one came. No one ever does. And in that silence, their potential was lost. The liberation is this. Once you see that truth, clearly you can stop waiting. You can take ownership of your life. You don't need to be ready. You don't need permission. You don't need applause. What you need is the courage to act, even when fear still whispers. Courage doesn't silence. Fear it simply refuses to obey it. And in that refusal, you discover what you've been waiting for all along, yourself. When you internalize this mindset, your world changes. Suddenly, you stop chasing saviors and start building foundations. You stop waiting for opportunity and start creating it. You stop handing your life to the future and start investing in the present. Every brick you lay today, however small, is part of the structure you will one day stand inside. And when that day comes, you won't thank someone else for rescuing you. You'll thank yourself for refusing to wait. So, let's say it again, not as a burden, but as a call to freedom. No one is coming to save you. The rescue mission is your own. And if you accept that, then you are already further ahead than most people will ever dare to go. If money is lost, it can be earned again. If relationships fracture, they can sometimes be rebuilt. If health falters, much of it can be regained with effort and care. But time is the one currency that only ever moves in one direction. Once spent, it is gone forever. That's why the Stoics spoke of time with the same urgency we often reserve for wealth or status. Seneca said, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it." The tragedy is not life's brevity, it's how casually we squander the days we are given. You already know this truth in your bones. Think of those nights when you lie awake, restless, realizing that another day has slipped past without progress. You replay the hours, the meaningless scrolling, the empty conversations, the distractions that left you exhausted but not fulfilled. Deep down, you feel the weight of wasted time. It doesn't strike all at once, it creeps in. And before long, what was once just one wasted day becomes years lost to drift dot in our modern world. The theft of time is everywhere. Technology has given us more tools than ever to build, to learn, to connect. But it has also created the perfect machinery of distraction. Social media feeds that never end, binge-worthy shows designed to keep you hooked, endless streams of news, an outrage to stir your emotions. We live in what some psychologists call the attention economy, an economy where the most valuable resource isn't money, it's your focus. And here's the painful truth. Most of us are giving it away for free. Look at the numbers. The average person spends nearly 3 hours per day on social media. Add in another 2 to 3 hours of passive entertainment, television, YouTube, streaming services, and you're looking at a life where almost half of your waking hours are handed over to someone else's agenda. That's not harmless. That is theft. Each hour lost to shallow distraction is an hour you could have invested in building your health, your knowledge, your relationships, your craft. You don't just lose time, you lose the life you could have lived in those hours. Think of it like this. Imagine depositing $24 into your account every single day, but you're forced to spend it before midnight. Once the day ends, whatever you haven't used is erased. Would you spend it mindlessly, scattering dollars into the wind, or would you invest it in things that actually mattered? That's exactly what happens with time. Every morning you wake up with 24 hours in your account. You can pour them into growth, or you can pour them into noise. But when the day ends, the balance resets and you don't get refunds. The Stoics urged us to treat each day as a lifetime in itself. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, you could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think. Not in a morbid way, but in a way that sharpened his awareness. If this were the last day, how would you spend it? Would you choose distraction? Or would you direct your attention to what truly mattered? When you carry that awareness into each moment, trivial time wasters lose their hold. They no longer seem harmless, they seem absurd. This is why procrastination is so dangerous. We often imagine that delaying something costs nothing, that pushing it to tomorrow is just a neutral choice. But tomorrow is never guaranteed. Even if it comes, tomorrow will have its own demands, its own chaos, its own excuses. By postponing, you trade a definite opportunity today for an uncertain possibility later. The cost isn't just the lost time, it's the erosion of trust in yourself. Every time you delay, you reinforce the identity of someone who doesn't act. An identity once formed is far harder to change than a single habit. Think about how this plays out in everyday life. A man says he'll start exercising when work slows down. Work never slows down, and 5 years later his body is weaker, his energy lower, his confidence diminished. A woman dreams of writing a book, but waits for inspiration. Inspiration never arrives and her stories remain trapped in silence. A young professional wants to start a side business but convinces himself he needs more money, more connections, more certainty. A decade passes, and the business lives only in his imagination. In each case, the dream wasn't lost to failure, it was lost to wasted time. The irony is that we rarely regret what we fail at trying. More often, we regret what we never began. Failures carry lessons, scars, and sometimes even hidden opportunities. Wasted time carries nothing. It leaves only emptiness, the silent recognition that you could have done more but chose not to. That's why so many people, when asked at the end of their lives, don't talk about the mistakes they made. They talk about the risks they never took, the time they let slip away. So how do you reclaim time? The Stoics would tell you to start with awareness. Notice where your hours are going. Write them down if you must. Not in vague categories like work or rest, but with precision. How much time was lost to scrolling, to gossip, to meaningless arguments? Awareness stings, but that sting is the beginning of freedom. Because once you see clearly, you can no longer lie to yourself about where your life is leaking away. Next, you must learn to protect your time the way you would protect something sacred. That means boundaries. It means saying no to obligations that drain you without feeding you. It means choosing silence over noise, presence over performance, creation over consumption. You don't need to fill every moment with monumental tasks. Small acts are enough. Read a few pages. Move your body. Learn a skill. Have a meaningful conversation. What matters is not the size of the act, but the intention behind it. Each small investment compounds, just like money earning interest. There's also the question of perspective. Many people treat time as though it is endless because they avoid facing mortality. But the Stoics urged us to reflect on death not to depress us, but to inspire us. Memento mori, remember that you must die, wasn't about fear. It was about focus. When you remember that life is finite, every hour becomes weighty, every choice matters more. That awareness strips away the trivial and illuminates the essential. Suddenly, scrolling through endless feeds feels like a grotesque waste, while investing in your growth feels urgent and alive. In the modern world, urgency often feels like anxiety. People worry about time anxiety, the pressure to be productive every second. But there's a difference between urgency and panic. Panic scatters you. Urgency clarifies you. The Stoic version of urgency is calm and deliberate. You don't waste time, not because you're frantic, but because you're aware. You treat each moment as meaningful, each hour as an opportunity. Anxiety drains you. Stoic urgency strengthens you. So the next time you feel tempted to waste time, remember this. You are not simply killing hours, you are shaping your life. Your days are your life in miniature. Waste one and you've wasted a piece of yourself. Invest one and you've built a piece of the person you are becoming. Time is your most precious asset. Treat it with the reverence it deserves, and it will repay you in ways no money or status ever could. We live in a culture that worships success and hides failure like a shameful secret. Scroll through social media, and you'll see highlight reels. Promotions, vacations, achievements polished to perfection. Rarely do you see the moments of rejection, the nights of doubt, the countless attempts that didn't work. Society teaches us to equate failure with personal inadequacy, but the Stoics and anyone who has built anything meaningful knew better. Failure is not the enemy. Failure is the raw material from which growth is forged. Epictetus once said, "First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do." Notice what he didn't say. He didn't promise that the doing would be smooth or that success would follow every effort. He knew that the path from vision to reality is littered with stumbles. What matters is not whether you fall, but whether you rise and what you learn along the way. Carl Jung gave us a deeper psychological insight when he wrote, "I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become." Failure, then, is not your identity. It is an event, a teacher, a mirror. It reveals weaknesses you ignored, assumptions you carried, skills you lacked. It strips away illusions and demands that you grow. To avoid failure is to avoid growth. To embrace failure is to embrace the truth that progress always has a cost. Think about your own life. What are the moments that shaped you most? Were they the easy wins, or were they the times when you fell short? Most people, if they're honest, will admit that the periods of struggle, rejection, and apparent defeat were the very seasons that carved resilience into their character. The job you didn't get forced you to sharpen your skills. The relationship that ended taught you about boundaries and self-worth. The project that failed revealed blind spots and pushed you to try again. With clearer eyes, failure is feedback. Without it, you live in the illusion that you're already complete. With it, you see the truth, and truth is the beginning of transformation. The problem is not failure itself, but the meaning we attach to it. Two people can experience the exact same setback. One interprets it as proof they are worthless, and they stop trying. The other interprets it as proof they are learning, and they keep moving. The Stoics would remind us that events are neutral. It is our judgment that makes them heavy. Men are disturbed not by things, but by the view which they take of them, Epictetus told his students. Failure doesn't wound you unless you decide it does. In modern society, fear of failure paralyzes millions. Workers avoid pitching ideas because they fear embarrassment. Students avoid new fields of study because they fear bad grades. Adults avoid relationships because they fear rejection. This fear masquerades as caution, but in reality, it is hesitation, a hesitation that kills potential quietly, day after day. Ironically, by avoiding failure, they guarantee the very outcome they fear, a life of stagnation, untested and unfinished. Consider entrepreneurship. Studies show that the majority of successful entrepreneurs did not succeed on their first venture. Many went bankrupt, faced ridicule, or launched products that no one wanted. Yet those failures gave them the knowledge, resilience, and perspective to succeed later. Colonel Sanders was rejected over 1,000 times before someone agreed to franchise his chicken recipe. J.K. Rowling was turned down by multiple publishers before Harry Potter became a global phenomenon. Failure did not end them, it forged them. Failure is not just a teacher of skills, it is a builder of character. It teaches humility, patience, and courage. It forces you to let go of ego and face reality. It strips away the illusion that you can control everything, reminding you that life's uncertainty is not a curse but an opportunity. Marcus Aurelius reflected on this when he wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." In other words, what feels like a roadblock is in truth the very path you must walk. But let's be clear, failure is painful. It burns pride, bruises the ego, and tests your resolve. Pretending otherwise is dishonest. The Stoics did not deny. Pain they taught us to reinterpret it. Just as a muscle grows by tearing and repairing, so too does the soul grow by failing and rising. Without that tearing, there is no strength. Without that resistance, there is no growth. Think of failure as the weight you lift at the gym. At first, it feels crushing, but each repetition makes you stronger. Over time, the very resistance you once dreaded becomes the source of your resilience. Modern psychology supports this ancient truth. Research on grit, led by Angela Duckworth, shows that perseverance in the face of failure is a stronger predictor of long-term success than raw talent. Talented people who never fail rarely develop the resilience to endure the challenges of real life. But those who stumble, learn, and continue build the grit that carries them further than talent alone ever could. Failure is not weakness. Avoiding failure is. Here's the danger of fearing failure. It convinces you never to begin. And not beginning is the greatest failure of all. You can recover from a stumble. You cannot recover from a dream you never pursued. A manuscript can be rewritten, a business relaunched, a skill improved. But time wasted and hesitation cannot be reclaimed. This is why hesitation is the silent killer, while failure is a noisy teacher. Failure leaves bruises, but also lessons. Hesitation leaves nothing but regret. We must also confront how society weaponizes failure. We are told that to fail is to be foolish, irresponsible, unworthy. This shame culture is what keeps people small. But look closer. Every thinker, inventor, and leader worth remembering failed publicly, sometimes spectacularly. Socrates was ridiculed and condemned. Seneca was exiled. Marcus Aurelius faced military defeats. These men were not defined by failure, but refined by it. Their strength was not that they avoided setbacks, but that they endured them with courage and clarity. So how should you approach failure? First, expect it. To live fully is to face rejection and loss. If you avoid these things, you're not protecting yourself, you're starving yourself. Second, reinterpret it. See each failure as feedback, each rejection as redirection, each setback as a sharpening stone. Third, persist. Refuse to let failure be the final word. Let it be a sentence in your story, not the ending. Persistence transforms failure from obstacle to stepping stone. Imagine if you began to welcome failure as a sign you were in the arena, living boldly instead of hiding. Imagine if each stumble became fuel instead of poison. How much stronger would you be after 10 failures than after 10 hesitations? Which life would you respect more at the end, the one cushioned by safety or the one scarred by effort? The truth is this: failure is inevitable, but wasted failure, the kind you refuse to learn from, is optional. You cannot escape falling short, but you can choose whether each fall leaves you weaker or wiser. The Stoics chose wisdom, and you can too. Failure at least announces itself. It leaves bruises you can see, disappointments you can name, and lessons you can carry forward. But distraction? Distraction is far more dangerous because it slips into your life quietly, disguised as harmless, and robs you one small piece at a time, until one day you look back and realize entire years have been stolen. The Stoics may not have had smartphones or social media, but they knew this danger well. Seneca warned, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it." Think about the modern world. We live in an age designed to fracture your focus. Companies spend billions to capture and hold your attention because they know it is the most valuable currency you own. Notifications buzz not because you need them, but because they profit someone else. Streaming services autoplay, not because it serves your growth, but because it keeps you watching. Algorithms learn your habits, weaknesses, and desires, not to make you stronger, but to keep you hooked. We tell ourselves it's harmless, just 5 more minutes, just one more video, just one more scroll. But 5 minutes multiplied by 1,000 days is years of your life given away. Distraction is insidious because it doesn't feel like failure. Failure hurts immediately. Distraction soothes. It gives you small bursts of pleasure, of dopamine, of temporary escape. That's why it's more dangerous. Failure leaves scars that wake you up. Distraction leaves fog that lulls you deeper into sleep. You don't even notice what you're losing until the losses compound. Consider this. 2 people both wake up with 24 hours. One spends 3 hours daily scrolling, watching, comparing, consuming noise. The other spends those same 3 hours reading, training, building a skill, or nurturing relationships. In a single day, the difference seems small. In a single week, it's hardly noticeable. But stretch it over 5 years, and the gap is staggering. One is wiser, stronger, more capable. The other has drifted, not because they lacked potential, but because they leaked their time into distraction. This is why distraction is the true assassin of potential. It doesn't strike with one fatal blow. It kills with small cuts, so small you barely notice until you bleed out the life you could have lived. Seneca's wisdom echoes here. To be everywhere is to be nowhere. When your attention is scattered across countless trivialities, you are present in nothing meaningful. You may be busy, but you are not building. You may be entertained, but you are not fulfilled. And here's the paradox. Distraction often feels easier than focus. It is easier to open your phone than to open a book, easier to scroll endlessly than to face a blank page, easier to compare yourself to someone else's highlight reel than to confront your own unfinished work. The path of least resistance is always lined with distractions, but easy choices now create hard lives later. Hard choices now create easier lives later. The cost of distraction is not the 5 minutes, it's the compounding regret that grows. When those 5 minutes multiply, the Stoics urged us to treat focus as sacred. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Do not act as if you had 10,000 years to throw away. Death stands over you. While you live, while it is in your power, be good." What he meant is clear. Stop wasting your most precious resource. Every hour you give to distraction is an hour you cannot give to building the life you claim to want. Every hour surrendered to noise is an hour stolen from your growth, your discipline, your relationships. What makes distraction even more deceptive is how it often disguises itself as responsibility. You tell yourself you need to stay updated, to check in, to keep up. But how much of the news you consume today will matter to you in a week? How many of the arguments you enter online will matter in a month? How many of the endless updates from acquaintances actually change the course of your life? The truth is, very little. Most of it is noise pretending to be signal, urgency pretending to be importance. And in giving yourself to it, you trade depth for shallowness, meaning for performance, and substance for spectacle. So how do you fight back? The first step is honesty. Where are you leaking time? What habits steal your attention without giving? Anything back? Write them down. Face them without excuses. Jung reminded us, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Distraction thrives in unconsciousness. The moment you shine awareness on it, you regain the power to choose. The second step is to design your environment to support focus. Don't rely on sheer willpower to resist temptation. It will fail eventually. Instead, create systems that make distraction harder and focus easier. Turn off notifications. Keep your phone out of reach when working. Block websites that waste your time. Schedule your deep work the same way you schedule appointments. As Epictetus said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." Mastery begins with guarding the gates of your attention. The third step is to replace distraction with discipline, not in one massive leap, but in small daily investments. Read a chapter instead of scrolling. Spend 10 minutes in silence instead of drowning in noise. Write one paragraph instead of watching one more video. These choices compound. Just as wasted time compounds into regret, focused time compounds into wisdom, strength, and character. And here's the deeper truth. Once you begin to taste the rewards of focus, distraction loses its grip. Clarity replaces confusion. Energy replaces fatigue. Progress replaces stagnation. The same way distraction numbs you slowly, focus awakens you gradually. Each hour invested builds the next, until the life you once dreamed of starts to take shape, not because luck arrived, but because you stopped giving yourself away. So remember this: failure may bruise you, but distraction will bury you. Failure at least pushes you forward, teaches you, shapes you. Distraction steals silently until nothing is left. Guard your attention as if your life depends on it, because it does. Plato once observed, "The first and greatest victory is to conquer yourself." Those words cut deeper the more you reflect on them. Most people go through life fighting external battles, chasing recognition, struggling against competitors, trying to control circumstances far beyond their reach. But the Stoics, like Plato before them, knew that the true battlefield is internal. The mind is the fortress that determines whether you stand strong or collapse. And the key to winning is simple, though not easy. You must guard your mind. Think of your mind as a walled city. Every thought that enters is like a visitor at the gate. Some visitors bring value, discipline, clarity, courage. Others bring poison, envy, resentment, fear, distraction. If you guard the gates poorly, anything can wander in and set up camp. Before long, the city is overrun and you no longer control it. But if you stand watch carefully, refusing entry to what weakens you, your city remains strong. Guarding your mind is the discipline of choosing which thoughts you will host and which you will reject. Modern life makes this harder than ever. We are bombarded with information, ads screaming for attention, notifications buzzing endlessly, opinions hurled at us from strangers on the internet. Each of these is a knock at the gate of your mind. Most people open the door automatically, letting in whatever noise happens to arrive. But the consequence is predictable mental clutter, anxiety, exhaustion. You cannot build clarity on a foundation of chaos. The world is designed to invade your focus. That means you must be deliberate in defending it. Marcus Aurelius practiced this daily. His meditations are essentially a private journal where he trained himself to reject unworthy thoughts and cultivate noble ones. He reminded himself to avoid anger, not because anger was forbidden, but because it clouded judgment. He warned himself not to crave applause, because applause corrupted virtue. He cautioned against complaint, because complaint wasted energy on what couldn't be changed. His vigilance at the gates of his own mind was constant, because he knew what was at stake, the freedom to live with clarity. The truth is, if you don't rule your own attention, someone else will. Employers, advertisers, influencers, each has an agenda for your focus. If you give it away blindly, you become a servant to their goals instead of the architect of your own. This is why the Stoics treated self-mastery as the highest form of freedom. Epictetus told his students, "No man is free who is not master of himself." Freedom is not simply doing what you want. It is the ability to command your own thoughts and actions regardless of external pressures. Let's ground this in real life. Imagine you start your day by scrolling through social media. Within minutes, you've already let comparison in through. The gates your mind is filled with images of other people's vacations, careers, and bodies. Envy sneaks in. Then comes outrage headlines designed to trigger anger, arguments designed to divide. You open the gates again, and resentment walks in. By the time you've even started your actual work, your mental fortress is crowded with intruders. No wonder focus feels impossible. You didn't lose clarity. You gave it away. Now imagine a different morning. You wake up and sit in silence for 5 minutes, practicing gratitude for simply being alive. You read a page of philosophy or a book that sharpens your thinking. You write a few sentences in a journal about your intentions for the day. Already, you've let in discipline, focus, and gratitude through the gates. These companions will walk with you throughout the day, strengthening the fortress instead of weakening it. The difference isn't luck, it's vigilance. Guarding your mind also means recognizing that not every thought deserves your attention. Thoughts will arise uninvited. That's part of being human. Fear will knock. Doubt will whisper. Anger will pound at the gate. You cannot stop them from arriving, but you can choose whether to let them in. This is the essence of Stoic practice. You don't need to control the arrival of thoughts. You need to control your response. As Marcus wrote, you have power over your mind, not outside events. The arrival of a thought is an event. Your decision to embrace or reject it is your power. Practical application matters here. How do you guard your mind in a noisy world? Start by filtering your inputs. Be ruthless about what you consume. Ask yourself, does this feed my discipline or drain it? Does this sharpen my focus or scatter it? Does this strengthen my character or erode it? If the answer is negative, close the gate. Limit exposure to people who poison your clarity with gossip, drama, or negativity. Step away from endless cycles of outrage. Protect the silence where your thoughts can breathe. Guarding. Your mind is not isolation, it is curation. But guarding the gates is not just about defense. It's also about cultivation. A fortress without food will collapse even if the walls hold. What are you feeding your mind? Daily reading, purposeful reflection, meaningful conversations, these are the nutrients of the soul. If you don't supply them, your fortress starves. The mind, like the body, thrives on what you consume. Junk in, junk out. Wisdom in, strength out. Another element of guarding your mind is managing self-talk. Too many people let their harshest critic live inside their own heads. They replay failures, exaggerate weaknesses, and predict disaster before it happens. If you wouldn't let a stranger speak to you that way, why allow it from yourself? Guarding your mind means challenging destructive inner voices. Replace them with voices of reason and encouragement. This isn't empty positivity, it's choosing accuracy over distortion. A setback doesn't mean you're worthless. A mistake doesn't mean you're doomed. Guard your mind against lies, even when they come from within. Workplace culture adds another layer. Offices, corporations, and even families constantly project expectations onto you. Without vigilance, you begin to internalize them, living not for your own values, but for the approval of others. Guarding your mind means holding fast to your principles when external noise tries to bend them. It means remembering that you don't need to explain your vision to everyone, only to yourself. The fortress doesn't need to be understood by outsiders. It only needs to be strong enough to protect what matters. This practice requires consistency. Just as a guard must patrol every day, you cannot slack off. Neglect the gates for a week, and the intruders multiply. But maintain vigilance daily, and the task becomes easier. Over time, your default shifts. You stop reacting to every opinion, stop chasing every distraction, stop surrendering to every fear. You build resilience. And resilience, once established, makes you unshakable. Ultimately, guarding your mind is an act of self-respect. It is a declaration that your attention, your thoughts, and your energy are too valuable to be wasted on trivialities. When you stand firm at the gates, you discover a power that no external event can touch. The storms may rage outside, but inside the fortress you remain calm, steady, clear. That is what Plato meant by conquering yourself. And that is the victory available to you every single day if you choose to guard the gates. Anyone can start. Strong when motivation is fresh. Anyone can take the first step when the vision is exciting, when the applause is loud, when the energy is high. But persistence, the choice to keep moving when the road grows long, silent, and unglamorous, that's where most people fall away. And that is exactly why persistence matters more than inspiration. The Stoics knew that inspiration was fleeting, but discipline was enduring. Inspiration ignites the fire, but persistence keeps it burning through the storms. Seneca once wrote, "If a man knows not to which port he sails, no wind is favorable. But even when the port is clear, the voyage is long." There will be calm days when progress feels effortless, but also dark days when storms batter you, when results are invisible, and when quitting whispers seductively in your ear. What determines whether you arrive isn't how inspired you felt at the start. It's whether you persist through the silence. Modern culture, however, glorifies inspiration. We binge motivational talks, chase viral quotes, and wait for the perfect surge of energy before acting. But motivation is like sugar, gives a quick rush, then crashes. Persistence is like protein, it builds muscle over time. Waiting for constant inspiration is a trap. It conditions you to move only when you feel like it. But the life you want won't wait for your feelings to align. It requires consistent steps, even when your emotions resist. Look at history's great builders. Marcus Aurelius didn't rise each day to rule an empire because he always felt like it. He did it because duty demanded it. Epictetus didn't teach resilience to his students because life was smooth. He was a slave who endured immense hardship. His teaching survived not because he felt inspired every day, but because he practiced persistence daily. Their wisdom reminds us, discipline outlasts mood. Persistence outlasts excitement. Let's put this in today's terms. Consider YouTubers, writers, athletes, or entrepreneurs. The ones who succeed aren't the ones who made a brilliant video, wrote one dazzling article, or had one explosive product. They're the ones who showed up consistently. They posted when views were low, wrote when nobody was reading, trained when no competition was in sight, built when profits were still distant. Their persistence created a compound effect, small, steady progress that built into mastery. Meanwhile, the ones who relied only on inspiration burned out after their initial burst. Think about your own goals. How many times have you started with excitement, only to fizzle out once the honeymoon period ended? A workout routine abandoned after 3 weeks. A journal left half empty after a month. A side project forgotten once the novelty wore off. This isn't proof that you're incapable. It's proof that you confused inspiration with persistence. What you lacked wasn't ability, but endurance. Here's the harsh truth. The world doesn't reward beginnings nearly as much as it rewards endurance. Anyone can begin. Few continue. That's why persistence is rare and why it's so valuable. The Stoics trained for this reality by lowering their expectations of ease. They didn't assume the path would be smooth. They assumed hardship, silence, and difficulty, and therefore they weren't shocked when it came. Marcus reminded himself, the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. Persistence isn't just about enduring obstacles. It's about transforming them into fuel. But persistence doesn't mean blind grinding. It isn't about running endlessly without reflection. Stoic persistence is intelligent. It's the steady, deliberate choice to return to what matters, even after setbacks. It's about patience with the process, trust in the compounding effect, and humility to keep walking when results aren't immediate. Persistence isn't glamorous, but it is transformative. Psychology backs this up. Angela Duckworth's research on grit shows that perseverance and passion over the long term predict success far more than IQ or talent. Talent without persistence fizzles. Persistence without extreme talent still wins because consistency builds skill, resilience, and opportunity. The problem is that most people never give persistence enough time to work. They quit in the invisible season when results haven't yet surfaced. They mistake silence for failure, not realizing that roots grow underground long before a tree breaks the soil. Here's a practical way to think about persistence. Fall in love with the process, not just the result. If you only chase results, you'll quit when they don't appear fast enough. But if you find meaning in the act itself, in showing up, in doing the work, and keeping your word, you'll outlast the droughts. Epictetus reminded us that freedom is found in mastering yourself. Persistence is self-mastery in action. It's proof that you are in control of your choices, not your moods. Consider athletes training for years before an Olympic event. They endure endless repetition, invisible to the world. The applause lasts minutes, but the persistence lasts decades. Or writers who spend years refining manuscripts no one reads until one book changes everything. Or ordinary people who invest small amounts each month, resisting distractions, until decades later they build financial freedom. None of this is built on inspiration alone. It is built on persistence, the choice to continue when novelty dies and struggle begins. Ask yourself, where have you relied on inspiration instead of persistence? Where have you started strong but abandoned the path once it grew silent? Recognize that the silence isn't a sign of failure. It's the test. It's life asking you, do you really mean this? Persistence answers yes, not with words, but with action. Each step, each repetition, each choice to continue is proof that your vision is stronger than your moods. And here's the paradox. Once you embrace persistence, inspiration returns, but on its own terms. The more consistently you show up, the more moments of joy, flow, and energy you experience. Discipline invites inspiration back. But even when inspiration doesn't show, persistence keeps you moving. That is the power of Stoic endurance. So, let's make it plain. Inspiration will get you started, but persistence will get you finished. The world won't remember you for how excited you were at the beginning, but for how faithful you were in the middle. Every day you persist, you prove to yourself that your vision is real, your character is strong, and your future is worth building. And in that persistence, you build not only results, but the identity of someone who cannot be shaken. We live in a culture addicted to immediacy. We want instant results, instant recognition, instant proof that what we're doing is working. If we start a new diet, we expect visible change in a week. If we launch a project, we want applause by the end of the month. If we practice a skill, we want mastery within the year. And when those results don't come quickly, discouragement creeps in, and most people quit. But the Stoics and later modern psychology teach us a timeless truth. Growth is often invisible in the moment. To achieve anything worthwhile, you must learn to trust the process. Seneca said, "It is a rough road that leads to the heights of greatness." Notice he didn't say a quick road or a smooth one. Rough meaning uneven, difficult, slow. Greatness doesn't arrive in a burst of inspiration. It is forged day by day, in silence, often without any visible reward. Trusting the process means having faith that each small act of discipline is compounding, even when you cannot yet see the outcome. Think of a tree. For months, sometimes years, it grows roots beneath the soil before breaking the surface. From above, it looks like nothing is happening. But underground, the foundations are being laid, preparing for growth that will one day be undeniable. Your progress works the same way. The workouts that feel invisible, the quiet hours of reading, the consistent discipline of journaling or creating, all of it is rooting you deeper. Just because you can't see immediate results doesn't mean growth isn't happening. The process is working, even in silence. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily that external validation is fleeting. He understood that if you measure your progress only by visible applause, you will abandon the very things that create long-term strength. Trusting the process means shifting your measurement. Instead of asking, "Did I win today?" you ask, "Did I stay faithful to my practice today?" That subtle shift changes everything. Winning is uncertain and outside your control. Faithfulness to practice is always within your grasp. In modern life, this lesson is critical. Social media has created a constant scoreboard: likes, views, followers, shares. It tricks you into believing that external signals are proof of worth. But those signals are unreliable. They fluctuate with algorithms, trends, and randomness. If you build your identity on them, you'll collapse the moment they dip. Trusting the process frees you from that trap. It anchors you in daily choices, not fickle outcomes. It roots you in discipline, not dopamine. Consider the athlete who trains for years before stepping into competition. Day after day, they practice drills, lift weights, repeat movements. Most days feel ordinary, even boring. But in time, the invisible training surfaces as extraordinary ability, or the musician practicing scales for thousands of hours, unseen, uncelebrated, until one day the performance looks effortless, or the writer who produces page after page, draft after draft, with no audience, until suddenly their work resonates. None of these breakthroughs happen without the silent seasons, and none of them happen if the person quits before the roots are deep enough. Psychologists call this delayed gratification, the ability to resist the lure of immediate pleasure for the sake of greater long-term reward. The famous Stanford marshmallow test showed that children who resisted eating one marshmallow immediately to receive two later were more likely to succeed later in life. Trusting the process is essentially living that principle on a grand scale. You choose discipline over distraction, effort over ease, patience over panic. And in time, the rewards multiply far beyond what instant gratification could ever deliver. But trusting the process doesn't mean blind optimism. It doesn't mean pretending that all effort automatically leads to success. The Stoics were realists. They knew outcomes were uncertain. What they urged us to do was focus on what we can control, the daily practices, the consistent disciplines, the alignment of actions with values. Success, then, becomes less about a guaranteed outcome and more about becoming the kind of person who can endure the road, adapt to obstacles, and continue moving forward. The process shapes you, even when the results aren't visible. Here's the challenge. The invisible seasons are often the hardest. They test your patience, your belief, your self-trust. These are the times when you must remind yourself why you began. When the gym sessions don't yet show in the mirror, When the content you produce isn't gaining traction, when the investments you make haven't yet matured, that's when doubt whispers loudest. But that is also the season where character is forged. If you quit in the silence, you rob yourself of the compounding effect. If you persist, you build not only results, but resilience. To make this practical, ask yourself, what process am I resisting because I can't yet see results? Is it the habit I dropped too soon? The skill I stopped practicing? The goal I abandoned because progress was invisible? Remember, impatience kills more dreams than failure ever will. Most people are capable enough to succeed. They simply lack the patience to endure the silent seasons. Trusting the process is your defense against that impatience. Let's return to Stoic wisdom. Epictetus urged his students to focus not on what was outside their control, but on their own actions. The process is always within your control. The results are not. By anchoring yourself in the process, you free yourself from the anxiety of uncertainty. You stop measuring your life by outcomes you can't guarantee, and you start measuring it by discipline you can always choose. That shift doesn't just produce results, it produces peace. And here's the paradox. When you finally stop obsessing over results, the results begin to appear. Not because you forced them, but because your consistency created conditions for them. Just like money compounding quietly in an account, just like roots growing silently underground, progress accumulates until one day it bursts into view. People will look at you and call it sudden success, but you'll know the truth. It wasn't sudden. It was the process all along. So trust the process. Trust it when it's slow. Trust it when it's silent. Trust it when doubt is loud and results are invisible. Each act of discipline is a seed. Each day of faithfulness is water. Each season of silence is roots. In time, the tree will grow. In time, the results will come. And even if they don't arrive in the way you imagined, you will have become stronger, clearer, and more resilient simply by walking the road that the Stoics would remind us is the true reward. There's a feeling you know well, an unease that rises when life feels stagnant. It's not loud, but it lingers. You might describe it as boredom, dissatisfaction, or even anxiety, but at its core, it is restlessness. Many people treat this restlessness as a problem to be silenced. They drown it in entertainment, bury it under work, numb it with substances or shallow pleasures. But the Stoics and many thinkers after them understood something crucial. Restlessness is not your enemy. It is your compass. It points to the gap between who you are today and who you could become if you fully committed to your growth. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "A man's worth is no greater than his ambitions." Restlessness is the spark of ambition manifesting in your soul. It is the whisper that says, "This is not all you were meant for." It is the signal that your current life is too small for the person you are capable of becoming. To ignore that signal is dangerous. It leads to apathy, cynicism, and regret. But to listen to it, to lean into it, is to set yourself on the path of transformation. Think about the times in your life when you felt most alive. Chances are, they were not moments of ease, but moments of growth, when you were learning something new, striving toward a goal, or daring to stretch beyond your comfort zone. That's because restlessness thrives when you are under-challenged. Your deeper self knows you are capable of more, and it refuses to let you settle. The tension you feel is not punishment, it's guidance. It's life demanding that you rise. In the modern world, restlessness often gets mislabeled as a crisis. We hear of quarter-life crises and midlife crises as if the desire for change were an illness. But what if those crises are simply the soul's alarm clock? The reminder that time is moving and you've been drifting too long. The danger isn't the crisis itself, it's ignoring it. Too many people silence their restlessness with endless distraction. They scroll, binge, consume anything to mute the call for more. But ignoring it doesn't kill it. It festers, turning into bitterness, envy, or quiet despair. That's why people wake up decades later wondering why their life feels hollow. Carl Jung offered profound insight here. There is no coming to consciousness without pain. Restlessness is that pain. It's the discomfort of realizing you've been playing small. It's the ache of unused potential, the weight of ambitions left unpursued. But within that discomfort is a gift. It is the map showing you where to go. Next, to dismiss restlessness as weakness is to miss the guidance it offers. To embrace it as a compass is to step into a higher version of yourself. Consider a professional stuck in a job they no longer care about. They feel restless, unfocused, drained. Many interpret this as failure, but perhaps it's not failure. It's the signal that their talents are meant for something else, that growth requires a new direction. Or consider someone in a relationship that no longer challenges them, where growth has stalled. Restlessness arises not to destroy, but to guide, to point to more the need for deeper connection, or courage to move on. These moments aren't signs you're broken. They're signs you're being called higher. The problem is that most people mistake restlessness for laziness or ingratitude. They tell themselves, I should be content with what I have. And while gratitude is essential, forced contentment can be a trap. Gratitude says, I am thankful for what I have now. Growth says, I will honor that gratitude by becoming more. The two are not opposites. They are allies. Gratitude keeps you grounded, while restlessness pulls you forward. Without gratitude, restlessness turns into entitlement. Without restlessness, gratitude turns into stagnation. So, how do you work with restlessness instead of against it? First, you must listen honestly. Where in your life do you feel the most unsettled? What situations consistently stir that quiet dissatisfaction? Write them down. Don't dismiss them. They are clues. Second, ask, is this restlessness pointing to fear or to potential? Often it's both. Fear whispers you're not ready. Potential whispers you must try anyway. Third, take a small step. You don't need to overhaul your life in one leap. You just need to honor the compass with movement. Even a small step tells your deeper self, I hear you. I'm moving. That act alone begins to quiet the unease. Restlessness is also a reminder of mortality. The Stoics practiced memento mori, remember that you will die not to depress themselves, but to sharpen their sense of urgency. Restlessness says, time is moving, don't waste it. It is the spirit rebelling against the slow decay of wasted days. If you listen, it fuels action. If you ignore it, it corrodes into regret. Seneca warned that It is not because things are difficult that we do not dare, but because we do not dare, things are difficult. Restlessness dares you to step beyond comfort, before comfort buries you. Modern psychology frames this as self-actualization, the drive to fulfill one's highest potential. Abraham Maslow argued that beyond basic needs for food and safety lies the need for growth, creativity, and purpose. Restlessness arises when you've met survival needs but neglected growth needs. It is not pathology. It is a sign you are ready for the next stage. If you silence it, you regress. If you honor it, you evolve. Think of the nights you've gone to bed after making progress, even small progress. Maybe it was finishing a workout, writing a page, learning a new skill, or simply saying no to a distraction. How did you feel? Restful, at peace, quietly proud. Now compare that to nights spent wasting hours in meaningless noise. The restlessness gnawed, didn't it? That contrast reveals the truth. Progress satisfies the soul. Stagnation starves it. The Stoics would tell you not to fear restlessness, but to harness it. Marcus Aurelius didn't ignore his inner tensions. He wrote about them, examined them, and used them as fuel. Socrates pushed his students to examine their lives precisely because unexamined restlessness leads to wasted existence. The point is not to avoid discomfort, but to let discomfort shape your direction. Pain is not the enemy. Aimlessness is not. So here's the challenge. The next time you feel restless, don't numb it. Don't drown it in screens or silence it with empty comforts. Sit with it. Ask it questions. What is it pointing to? What is the gap it's exposing between your current self and your potential self? Then take one deliberate action in response. One step toward learning, creating, connecting, building. Each time you honor your restlessness with action, you transform it from a burden into a compass dot in the end. Restlessness is proof that you are alive. A stagnant pond breeds decay, but a flowing river brings life. Your spirit was not built to drift aimlessly. It was built to build, to grow, to expand. When you feel restless, it is not life punishing you. It is life inviting you. The question is whether you will listen. There's a kind of wealth more valuable than money, more stabilizing than relationships, and more enduring than recognition. It isn't external, it's internal. It's the wealth of knowing you can rely on yourself. Self-trust is the invisible currency of self-respect. Without it, every achievement feels hollow. With it, even setbacks feel survivable. And yet, most people neglect this foundation, chasing approval from others, while quietly breaking promises to themselves. The Stoics understood that without self-trust, freedom collapses. Think about it. How many times have you told yourself, "Tomorrow I'll start," only to break that vow? How many mornings have you promised discipline, only to surrender to distraction? Each broken promise might seem small in the moment, but over time it erodes something essential, your belief in your own word. And when that belief fades, no amount of applause can replace it. You may look successful to the world, but inside you know the truth. You can't trust yourself. That's a poverty deeper than any financial loss. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." Notice the simplicity. He wasn't speaking about impressing others. He was talking about aligning with yourself. Living in truth begins with keeping your own word. Each time you follow through, you cast a vote for the identity of someone reliable. Each time you betray your word, you cast a vote for unreliability. Identities are built on these votes. 1. Broken promise may not destroy you, but a pattern of them creates an identity you can't respect. This is why so many people struggle with confidence. Confidence doesn't come from affirmations in the mirror or external validation. It comes from evidence, the evidence that when you say you'll act, you act. That's why some people move with quiet conviction. They're not louder, richer, or more talented. They simply keep their word. And because they do, they trust themselves deeply. That trust shows in how they walk, how they speak, how they endure difficulty. Self-trust is also what frees you from dependence on others' approval. When you know you'll keep walking, whether or not anyone claps, the weight of other people's opinions loses its power. You no longer need constant reassurance because you've built reassurance within. Epictetus taught, "It is impossible for a man to learn what he thinks he already knows." Applied here, it means if you pretend you're trustworthy while constantly breaking your word, you block your own growth. To rebuild self-trust, you must face the cracks honestly and start repairing them with action. But rebuilding isn't about perfection. It's about consistency. If you've broken trust with yourself for years, you won't fix it with one massive gesture. You fix it by keeping one promise today. Wake up when you said you would. Finish the task you committed to. Resist the temptation you vowed to avoid. These small victories are not trivial. They are the bricks that rebuild the foundation. Over time, they restore the reflection in the mirror. You begin to see someone you can respect again. Consider athletes. Their self-trust doesn't come only from talent. It comes from showing up daily, honoring the training schedule even when they don't feel like it. Each completed session is evidence that they can rely on themselves. So when competition comes, they walk into the arena with quiet confidence, not because they know the outcome, but because they know they've kept their word. The same applies in any area of life. Self-trust is earned through repetition, not luck. Think of relationships too. Many people enter them seeking stability, hoping another person will fill their gaps. But when you don't trust yourself, you put impossible pressure on the relationship. You cling, you bend, you resent, because deep down you know you're not solid on your own. But when you've built self-trust, you no longer use relationships as crutches. You bring stability into them. You don't need someone to validate you because you've validated yourself through discipline. That steadiness is what makes your relationship stronger, not weaker. Breaking your own word, on the other hand, corrodes more than confidence. It distorts identity. Imagine a mirror cracked by repeated betrayals. The reflection becomes warped. You begin to see yourself as unreliable, incapable, undeserving. And once you believe that, you stop setting meaningful goals. Why set them if you know you won't? Keep them? That's the silent death of potential. Not failure, not rejection, but the moment you stop believing your own word. The way back is through small, steady action. Not promises shouted, but promises kept in silence. Waking up early not to post about it, but because you said you would. Writing the page, lifting the weight, making the call not because anyone else demands it, but because you promised yourself. Each act whispers, "You can trust me again." Those whispers accumulate until one day they become conviction. And conviction is unshakable. Modern life makes this harder. Everywhere you turn, people encourage performance over authenticity. Look the part, polish the image, chase the applause. But image without integrity is hollow. You might fool others, but you cannot fool yourself. You know whether your actions match your words. And when they don't, the applause feels undeserved. That dissonance is why so many successful people feel empty. They've won the world's trust but lost their own. The Stoics would call this slavery to appearances, slavery to others' opinions. True freedom, they argued, comes from alignment between word and action. To be free is to be able to trust yourself completely. That freedom cannot be bought. It must be earned. Through discipline, one promise at a time. Ask yourself now, where have you broken trust with yourself? Where have you said, never again, and then repeated the pattern? Where have you whispered promises in silence, only to betray them before anyone else knew? These are the cracks in your foundation. They will not fix themselves, but they can be repaired. The repair begins the moment you keep even the smallest promise today. Remember, wealth fades, recognition shifts, relationships change, but self-trust endures. It is the currency of self-respect. Build it, and you walk with confidence through storms. Lose it, and no amount of external success can save you from the hollowness that follows. So keep your word, not for applause, not for approval for yourself. Because when you believe in your own reliability, you carry a strength that no critic, no failure, and no setback can take away. That is the wealth the Stoics treasured, the unshakable foundation of a life lived in truth. Few traps are as subtle or as destructive as the need for approval. On the surface, it looks harmless. Who doesn't want to be liked, respected, or celebrated? But beneath that craving lies a prison. Every time you shape your decisions to earn applause, every time you shrink your vision to avoid criticism, you hand the keys of your life to someone else. And the worst part is, most of those people don't even know what they want for themselves, yet you're letting them dictate your path. The Stoics warned against this dependence centuries ago. Marcus Aurelius observed, "It never ceases to amaze me. We all love ourselves more than other people, but care more about their opinion than our own." What he meant is painfully clear. We know our own heart, our own values, our own potential, yet we spend more energy worrying about strangers' judgments than nurturing our truth. That imbalance isn't just irrational. It's deadly to self-respect. In the modern world, the craving for approval has multiplied. Social media has turned validation into a currency. Likes, comments, followers, they promise a hit of dopamine, a momentary sense of worth. But like any drug, the effect fades quickly, leaving you hungry for more. Soon, you're not creating from truth, but performing for applause. You measure your life not by alignment with your values, but by numbers on a screen. And in chasing that, you lose yourself. Think about how this plays out in everyday life. A young professional has an idea that could transform their career. But before acting, they imagine the laughter, the doubts, the whispers of colleagues. Fear of disapproval chains them in place. Or someone wants to pursue a passion, art, writing, entrepreneurship, But family expectations demand a safer path. To please them, they abandon their vision or consider relationships. How many people stay in toxic dynamics simply to avoid judgment from friends or community? Approval becomes more important than authenticity. Here's the paradox. The more you chase approval, the less joy you find in what you achieve. A dream reshaped to please others loses its fire. Victories won for applause feel empty. You might gain acceptance, but acceptance built on compromise always tastes hollow. You end up with achievements that look good from the outside, but feel meaningless on the inside, and you know it. That quiet dissonance, that gap between external approval and internal. Truth is why so many people feel unfulfilled despite appearing successful. The Stoics would call this slavery, not of the body, but of the soul. To live for the opinions of others is to chain yourself to shifting sand. Opinions change daily. Today's applause becomes tomorrow's criticism. If your worth rises and falls with that tide, you will never stand firm. True freedom comes only when you anchor yourself in what you know to be right, regardless of how it is received. Epictetus put it bluntly, if you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. Growth demands that you risk misunderstanding. If you cannot endure being doubted, you cannot endure becoming who you are meant to be. So why do we cling to approval? Because disapproval hurts. We are social creatures, wired to seek belonging. In ancient times, exclusion from the tribe meant death. Today, exclusion just means disapproval, but our nervous system reacts as if it were life-threatening. The result is that we shrink ourselves to avoid even mild rejection. But what feels safe in the moment becomes suffocating over time. Each compromise chips away at authenticity until little remains. You are left living someone else's life, performing someone else's script. The antidote is solitude, not loneliness, but intentional withdrawal to hear your own voice again. Most people avoid solitude because it feels uncomfortable. Silence reveals truths they'd rather ignore, the dreams they abandoned, the compromises they made, the visions they diluted. But facing that discomfort is the path to freedom. In solitude, you can strip away the noise of others' opinions and ask, what do I really want? What belongs to me, and what belongs to the expectations of others? Until you answer those questions, you cannot live a life that is truly yours. Practical steps help here. First, notice when you're making a choice for approval rather than alignment. Are you saying yes because it's right, or because you fear judgment if you say no? Are you pursuing a goal because it excites you, or because it looks impressive to others? Awareness is the first step. Second, practice small acts of authenticity. Speak your mind respectfully, even when it risks disapproval. Say no to commitments that drain you, even if others don't understand. Each act of authenticity weakens the chains of approval. Third, surround yourself with people who respect your truth instead of demanding your compliance. Approval seeking thrives in toxic environments. It withers in communities of authenticity. But the deepest shift is internal. You must learn to replace external applause with internal respect. Ask yourself, would I respect myself if I chose this path, even if no one approved? If the answer is yes, that's your compass. That's the Stoic way, living in alignment with virtue, not popularity. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire, yet wrote more about humility, discipline, and truth than about conquest or praise. He knew that external approval fades. Internal alignment endures. Here's the paradox you'll discover. When you stop needing approval, people respect you more. They sense your stability, your authenticity, your refusal to bend for every opinion. Approval given freely carries more weight than approval demanded. But by then, you won't care as much because you'll have already won the only approval that matters, your own. Ask yourself now, how many of your goals have you watered down for acceptance? How many times have you betrayed your truth for applause? How much of your life is performance rather than authenticity? The answers may sting, but they are liberating. Because once you see the cost clearly, you can choose differently. You can choose to build instead of perform, to live instead of please, to grow instead of conform. Approval will always shift like the wind. Authenticity is the only solid ground. Don't trade your freedom for applause that fades tomorrow. Don't shrink your vision to fit someone else's imagination. Don't surrender your soul for a pat on the back. The Stoics would tell you, live your truth fully, even if the world misunderstands. That is the only path to lasting respect, the respect that comes from within. The modern world is louder than it has ever been, not just in the literal sense of sirens, traffic, and conversations, but in the constant hum of digital noise. Notifications buzz like gnats, headlines scream for your outrage. Social media scrolls endlessly with other people's opinions. Add to that the chatter inside your own head, regrets, replaying the past, anxieties imagining the future, and you quickly realize noise isn't just outside you, it's within you. And the more noise you allow, the less clearly you can hear the voice that matters most, your own. The Stoics understood this long before the invention of smartphones. They lived in bustling cities, faced public criticism, and navigated political storms. Yet they consistently emphasized the value of silence. Socrates famously said, "The unexamined life is not worth living. Examination requires silence." Marcus Aurelius wrote his meditations not as public speeches, but as private reflections in the quiet of night. Seneca urged his students to withdraw from the crowd at times, warning that constant exposure to other people's opinions was corrosive to character. For them, silence wasn't emptiness, it was clarity. Noise has a dangerous quality. It feels urgent. Every ping demands your attention. Every headline insists on immediate reaction. Every argument online tempts you to defend yourself. But urgency is often an illusion. Most of what demands your attention doesn't actually matter. It's noise disguised as importance. And if you give in to it, you scatter your energy across trivialities, leaving nothing for what truly matters. Epictetus reminded his students, if you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. In other words, stop trying to prove yourself to the noise. Withdraw from it. Focus on growth, even if others misunderstand. Silence, by contrast, feels uncomfortable at first. The moment you turn off the noise, you begin to notice the thoughts you've been avoiding, the regret of wasted time, the fear of not being enough, the nagging sense that you're living below your potential. This is why so many people avoid silence. They don't want to face themselves. Carl Jung once wrote, "People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul. Noise is the escape. Silence is the confrontation. But confrontation is exactly where growth begins. Think about your daily routine. How often do you give yourself even 10 minutes of silence? Most people wake up and immediately reach for their phones. Before they've even left the bed, the noise has begun: emails, texts, updates, opinions. Their minds are filled with other people's voices before they've even heard their own. By the time they reach work, they're already drained, scattered, reactive. Compare that to starting the day with silence. Sitting quietly, journaling, reading philosophy, reflecting on your values. That silence anchors you. It gives you clarity before the noise has a chance to invade. In practical terms, silence doesn't mean total withdrawal from the world. It means creating deliberate spaces where you can listen inward. It could be meditation, a morning walk without your phone, a daily journal, or even 5 quiet minutes before bed. These practices are simple, but their impact is profound. In silence, you remember what matters. In silence, you recalibrate. In silence, you reclaim ownership of your thoughts instead of renting them out to the loudest voices. Noise also thrives in relationships. How often do we perform for others, explaining ourselves, endlessly seeking to justify our decisions, defending our choices? This is another form of noise, the noise of approval seeking. But when you cultivate inner silence, you no longer feel the need to shout your worth. You don't have to convince anyone. You act with clarity and let results speak for themselves. Seneca wrote, "He who is brave is free." Brave enough to be misunderstood, brave enough to walk quietly, brave enough to choose silence over performance. That is freedom. Here's the paradox. When you no longer crave validation, you often receive more respect. People sense the calm in you, the steadiness that comes from not being moved by every opinion. Silence has a gravity that noise never will. But by the time you reach that point, you don't need their approval anymore. The respect becomes a byproduct, not the goal. Modern research confirms what the Stoics intuited. Studies on attention show that constant exposure to noise, especially digital noise, reduces focus, increases anxiety, and weakens memory. Meanwhile, practices of silence, meditation, reflection, journaling improve clarity, decision-making, and emotional resilience. The mind, like the body, needs recovery. Noise exhausts it. Silence restores it. Ask yourself honestly, how much of your day is consumed by noise? How many hours vanish to scrolling, reacting, arguing, consuming things that add no value to your life? And when was the last time you truly sat in silence, listening to your own thoughts without distraction? The answers may sting, but they also reveal a way forward. Because the antidote to noise isn't more noise, it's deliberate silence. The Stoics believe that clarity is freedom, and clarity comes not from more information, but from better attention. Noise dilutes attention. Silence sharpens it. When you choose silence, you reclaim focus. You stop scattering your energy across every triviality and begin directing it toward what builds you. Silence isn't the absence of life, it is the space where life becomes clear. So, the next time the world pulls you in 1,000 directions, remember this: you don't need to respond to every ping. You don't need to chase every headline. You don't need to prove yourself in every argument. Step back. Choose silence. In that silence, you'll hear something the noise can never give you. Your own voice, steady, clear, and unshakable. That is the voice the Stoics cultivated. And it is the voice you must guard if you want to live deliberately in a world built to distract you. Fear is universal. It shows up in every human life, regardless of age, status, or circumstance. It whispers before you take a risk. It tightens your chest before you speak your truth. It pulls at you when you stand at the edge of the unknown. Most people think the goal is to eliminate fear, to wait until they feel no trace of it before moving. But the Stoics knew this was a trap. If you wait for fear to disappear, you will wait forever. Courage isn't the absence of fear. Courage is moving forward while fear walks beside you. Plato said, "Courage is knowing what not to fear." The Stoics carried that idea forward. They taught that most fears are illusions, projections of the mind, not realities of the world. Epictetus reminded his students, "Men are disturbed not by things, but by the view which they take of them. What terrifies one person can empower another. The event doesn't decide its meaning, you do." The choice to reinterpret fear is the essence of courage. Think of Marcus Aurelius, leading armies on the frontiers of the Roman Empire. Fear must have surrounded him, fear of betrayal, fear of defeat, fear of death. Yet his writings rarely dwell on eliminating fear. Instead, they focus on perspective. He asked himself daily, "What is within my control? What is not?" The former deserves effort. The latter deserves acceptance. By narrowing his focus to what could actually be influenced, he drained fear of its power. Fear thrives in uncertainty. Clarity suffocates it. In modern life, fear is no less present. We fear rejection when we express our ambitions. We fear failure when we attempt something new. We fear judgment when we choose authenticity over approval. Fear disguises itself as caution or prudence, but underneath it is resistance. It doesn't keep us safe, it keeps us small. Entire lives are lived within invisible cages built not of steel, but of fear. Yet notice something. Many of the things you once feared no longer hold you. Think of the first time you spoke in front of a group, drove a car, started a job, or confessed your feelings. Fear felt overwhelming then, but once you acted, its grip loosened. The fear was never permanent. It was an illusion that collapsed the moment you stepped through it. Courage isn't about erasing fear before acting. It's about acting and watching fear dissolve in the process. Modern psychology aligns with this. Exposure therapy shows that the best way to overcome fear is not avoidance, but gradual exposure. Afraid of speaking in public? Speak to a small group. Afraid of rejection? Practice initiating conversations. Afraid of failure? Start small projects where mistakes are survivable. Each act of courage proves to your nervous system that fear is not fatal. Each act weakens the grip of hesitation. Over time, the cage expands and you realize it was never locked. Courage is also cumulative. Every time you choose to act despite fear, you add to your reservoir of strength. At first, it feels like lifting a weight too heavy for you, but each repetition builds resilience. Soon, what once felt impossible becomes ordinary. Think of a soldier in training, or a firefighter running toward flames, or a parent protecting their child. None of them act without fear, they act through fear. Their courage is trained, built from countless moments of persistence against resistance. The Stoics believed that courage is foundational, because without it, none of the other virtues can stand. How can you practice justice if you fear disapproval? How can you pursue wisdom if you fear being thought foolish? How can you cultivate discipline if you fear discomfort? Courage is the hinge on which all growth turns. Without it, potential remains locked. With it, everything else becomes possible. Consider ordinary modern examples. A worker speaks up against unethical practices in their company. That's courage. A young adult leaves behind a safe but unfulfilling path to pursue a meaningful calling. That's courage. A person chooses to end a toxic relationship, risking loneliness to reclaim their self-respect. That's courage. None of these people felt fearless. They simply chose to value growth over comfort, truth over safety. That choice is the essence of courage. But here's the paradox. Fear never fully disappears. It evolves with you. Conquer one fear, and a new one emerges at the next level. That's not failure, it's growth. Each new challenge brings new uncertainty, and with it, new fear. The point is not to eliminate fear, but to expand your capacity to move alongside it. A life without fear is not a life of courage, it's a life without challenge. And a life without challenge is a life without growth. So how do you cultivate Stoic courage in practice? First, by examining your fears honestly. Write them down. Where are they holding you back? Which decisions are you postponing because fear whispers not yet? Second, test them. Ask, what's the worst that could happen? Most of the time, the worst is not death or ruin, it's embarrassment, rejection, or temporary discomfort. When you shine a light on fear, it often shrinks. Third, take small but deliberate actions against it. Don't wait for bravery to arrive. Act first, and bravery follows. And when you stumble, as you will, remember that courage is not perfection. Courage is persistence. It's standing again after a fall. It's saying, I was afraid yesterday, but today I will try again. Seneca wrote, difficulties strengthen the mind, as labor does the body. Every fearful situation endured is like lifting a heavier weight. The muscles of courage grow, and in time you carry not just your own fears more lightly, but also the fears of others who lean on your strength. Here's the deeper truth. Courage transforms more than your actions. It transforms your identity. Each act of courage whispers, you are stronger than you think. Each repetition engraves resilience into your character. And soon you stop asking, what if I fail? And begin asking, what if I never try? That shift in identity is priceless. It is the foundation of self-respect, the core of Stoic strength. So don't wait for fear to vanish. It won't. Don't interpret fear as a signal to stop. Interpret it as proof you are on the edge of growth. The presence of fear means you are pushing beyond comfort, stepping into new territory, testing your limits. That's exactly where you need to be. The Stoics would remind you, courage isn't rare. It's a choice available to you in every moment. Choose it, and you'll find that fear doesn't fade, it transforms into fuel. Comfort sells itself as peace, but it's really just a disguise for stagnation. Modern life worships comfort: cushions, chairs, climate control, endless entertainment at the swipe of a screen, food delivered to your door without moving an inch. Advertisements whisper, "You deserve to relax, you deserve ease." And of course, rest has its place. But when comfort becomes your aim, it slowly corrodes your spirit. The Stoics knew this long before modern luxuries existed. They warned that comfort is not safety, it is decay in slow motion. Seneca put it plainly, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it." Much of that waste comes from chasing comfort. We tell ourselves we're avoiding stress, but really we're avoiding growth. We confuse convenience with freedom, but in truth, convenience chains us to weakness. Comfort whispers that tomorrow will be easier, but tomorrow never arrives. And while you wait, your edge dulls, your ambition fades, your resilience shrinks. Think about it. Every great achievement in human history came through discomfort. Soldiers endured hunger, fatigue, and danger to protect their people. Artists and inventors pushed through rejection, ridicule, and sleepless nights. Parents sacrificed rest and ease to raise children. Nothing of value is ever born in perfect conditions. Comfort may feel safe, but it never produces greatness. It produces passivity, dependency, and regret. Marcus Aurelius, emperor of Rome, could have indulged in every luxury available. Yet his writings reveal a man who disciplined himself against indulgence. He reminded himself daily that life is short, death is certain, and comfort will not save him from either. It is not death that a man should fear, but he should fear never beginning to live, he wrote. Living fully meant embracing the struggle, not hiding in ease. Comfort promises life while quietly stealing it. Modern society magnifies this lie. We live in what some call the dopamine economy. Companies profit by keeping you comfortable, ordering food instead of cooking, scrolling instead of creating, streaming instead of striving. The economy of ease is designed not to empower you, but to pacify you. The more passive you become, the more profitable you are for someone else. In exchange, you lose agency, vitality, and time. But here's the paradox. Comfort feels good in the moment, yet leaves you weaker afterward. Discomfort feels hard in the moment, yet leaves you stronger afterward. Skip the workout and you feel relief now, but regret later. Push through it and you feel strain now, but confidence later. Comfort is always short-term gain for long-term loss. Discomfort is short-term cost for long-term growth. Stoic exercises often involved deliberately seeking discomfort. Seneca would practice poverty, eating coarse food and wearing rough clothing, asking himself, "Is this what I feared?" By facing discomfort voluntarily, he built resilience against involuntary hardship. Epictetus, born a slave, taught his students that you don't control external circumstances, but you can control your response. Choosing discomfort in training prepared them for discomfort in life. The practice wasn't about masochism, it was about freedom. If you can endure discomfort willingly, then no external force can dominate you. Look at modern examples. Cold showers, fasting, endurance training. Many people dismiss these as trends, but their value lies in the principle. Choose discomfort now so comfort doesn't enslave you later. Entrepreneurs who take risks, artists who risk criticism, individuals who step into difficult conversations, they are practicing Stoic courage. They refuse the lie of comfort, and in return they gain strength that lasts. The danger of comfort is subtle. It doesn't collapse you overnight. It slowly dulls your edge until you forget you had one. You tell yourself you're fine, but fine is not alive. Fine is drifting. Fine is comfort locking you in a cage padded so softly you stop noticing the bars. One day you wake up realizing years have passed and the fire inside you has gone out not from catastrophe, but from comfort. Ask yourself, where has comfort lied to you? Is it in your health, where convenience food whispers louder than discipline? Is it in your work, where the steady paycheck of a job you hate feels safer than the risk of building something meaningful? Is it in your relationships, where you avoid hard conversations because comfort feels easier than honesty? Each time you choose false comfort, you trade long-term fulfillment for short-term ease. And that trade always ends in regret. Here's the truth. Life itself is discomfort. No amount of luxury can shield you from sickness, loss, or death. The Stoics embraced discomfort not because they enjoyed suffering, but because they knew resisting it was futile. By training in discomfort, they prepared themselves to meet life as it is unpredictable, challenging, impermanent. Comfort says hide. Stoicism says stand. And standing, even trembling, builds strength that hiding never can. But rejecting comfort doesn't mean rejecting joy. It means rejecting numbness. True joy comes from growth, purpose, and effort. Ask anyone who has run a marathon, built a business, raised a child, or written a book. The joy didn't come from comfort. It came from endurance. It came from leaning into discomfort and emerging stronger. Comfort lied, but the struggle told the truth. So how do you break free from the lie of comfort? Start small. Skip the shortcut once a day. Take the stairs instead of the elevator. Read instead of scrolling. Have the hard conversation instead of avoiding it. Each act reminds your soul, I choose growth, not numbness. Over time, these choices accumulate. The comfort that once seduced you begins to lose its grip. The Stoics would challenge you with this. Are you willing to be uncomfortable in pursuit of what matters? If not, comfort will own you. But if yes, you will own yourself. Because the measure of your life will not be how comfortable you were, but how alive you became. And aliveness is never found in hiding. It is found in stepping into the struggle. Comfort is a lie. Don't sell your freedom for it. Don't waste your years in its velvet cage. Choose discomfort when it matters. Embrace the struggle. In doing so, you'll find something comfort could never give you: strength, meaning, and a life you can respect. There's a moment in every pursuit when the temptation to stop feels overwhelming. The body aches, the mind protests, and the voice inside whispers, you've done enough. Rest now. Quit while you're ahead. This moment comes to everyone, the athlete, the entrepreneur, the parent, the student. And it's in this moment, right on the edge of quitting, where the difference between ordinary and extraordinary is decided. The Stoics would tell you, go one step further, because the growth you seek often lives just beyond the point of exhaustion. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily to rise and face the tasks of life, even when he didn't feel like it. At dawn, when you have trouble getting out of bed, tell yourself, "I have to go to work as a human being." His reminder wasn't about heroic leaps, but about consistent steps. One more morning, one more duty, one more act of perseverance. The greatness of his reign wasn't forged in sudden bursts, but in daily returns to responsibility. That's what it means to go further, not once, but again and again. Modern life conditions us to stop too soon. Fitness programs promise results in weeks. Careers are abandoned after a few setbacks. Relationships are ended at the first sign of difficulty. We've been trained to think progress should feel smooth, but real growth is jagged, messy, and exhausting. The wall you hit, the resistance that feels unbearable, isn't the end. It's the threshold. And if you can push past it, even by a single step, you enter a space most people never reach. Athletes know this truth intimately. Marathon runners talk about the wall, that moment when the body feels depleted and the mind screams to quit. But those who push through discover a second wind, a deeper reserve of strength that would never have been found otherwise. That hidden strength doesn't reveal itself until you demand more of yourself than you thought possible. The wall is not a signal to stop, it's the doorway to the next level. This principle applies far beyond sports. Think of a writer facing the blank page. The first sentences feel clumsy, inspiration doesn't come, and discouragement builds. Most people close the notebook, but the writer who stays, who pushes one more paragraph, often finds clarity waiting on the other side. Or the entrepreneur facing repeated setbacks, products fail, investors doubt, customers hesitate. Most quit, but those who endure, taking one more step despite rejection, are the ones who eventually break through. The Stoics framed this in terms of endurance. Seneca said, "It is not that we are given a short life, but we make it short, and we are not all supplied, but wasteful of it." One of the ways we waste life is by stopping at the threshold, quitting just before the lesson, the growth, the breakthrough arrives. Going further is how you honor the time you've been given. Not by burning out recklessly, but by refusing to waste the opportunities hidden in discomfort. There's also a psychological shift that happens when you go one step further. Each time you persist when you wanted to quit, you reshape your identity. You prove to yourself that you are stronger than your moods, tougher than your doubts. Self-respect grows not from easy victories, but from hard-won endurance. This is why military training, for example, pushes recruits past exhaustion. It's not just about physical strength. It's about showing them that they can endure more than they believed. That revelation changes everything. But let's be clear, going further doesn't always mean massive leaps. Sometimes it means the smallest step when quitting feels easier. Reading one more page, doing one more rep, having one more honest conversation, writing one more sentence. These aren't dramatic acts, but they compound over time. They separate the person who lives on the surface from the one who digs deeper. Greatness is rarely about giant leaps. It's about thousands of extra steps no one else was willing to take. There's also a spiritual element here. Going further isn't just about achievement. It's about alignment. When you go beyond what you thought you could do, you align with your deeper self, the self that refuses to settle. That alignment brings meaning. Comfort offers relief, but growth offers fulfillment. and fulfillment is always found on the far side of effort. Modern culture often preaches the opposite. It tells you to honor your limits, to listen to your feelings, to quit when things get tough. And yes, rest has its place. No Stoic would argue against caring for the body or mind, but the line between rest and surrender is thin. Too often, listening to yourself becomes an excuse for avoiding the very discomfort that would make you stronger. The Stoic path isn't about reckless overexertion, it's about deliberate endurance. It's about distinguishing between necessary rest and cowardly retreat. Ask yourself, where in your life have you been stopping too soon? Is it the project you abandoned when progress slowed? The relationship you gave up on when communication became hard? The discipline you dropped when results weren't immediate? If you had gone just one step further, what would you have discovered? What hidden strength, what breakthrough, what lesson might have been waiting just beyond the wall? There's a saying in business: most people quit 3 feet from gold. They dig and dig, then stop just before striking the vein. Life works the same way. The wall you're facing may not be the end, it may be the final layer before success. But you'll never know unless you keep going. The Stoics would challenge you to adopt this mindset daily. Instead of asking, "Have I done enough?" ask, "Can I go a little further?" Instead of stopping at the first sign of discomfort, pause and push once more. Each time you do, you expand your limits. Each time you stop too soon, you shrink them. Growth isn't measured in comfort. It's measured in how often you step beyond it. So here's the call. The next time you want to quit, take one more step. Write one more line, lift one more weight, endure one more hour of discipline. Don't stop at the wall. Push through it, because everything you want, strength, respect, fulfillment, lies just beyond that point of exhaustion. And the moment you discover that you'll never see discomfort the same way again, you'll know it isn't a signal to quit. It's a sign you're close. Growth is deceptive. It rarely announces itself with fireworks or applause. More often it hides in the background, invisible to the eye, while you feel as though nothing is changing. This is why so many people quit too soon. They assume silence means failure, when in truth, growth is unfolding quietly beneath the surface. The Stoics knew this. They taught that progress should not be measured by immediate results, but by steady alignment with virtue, discipline, and truth. Real transformation happens long before others notice, and long before you even notice yourself. Marcus Aurelius often reminded himself not to chase recognition, but to focus on living according to principle. Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one. The growth lies in the being, not the recognition. The moment you live in alignment, even when invisible, you are already growing. Others may not see it, and you may not feel it yet, but the roots are deepening. Think of the bamboo tree. For years after planting, nothing appears above ground. Farmers water it faithfully, day after day, with no visible progress. Then suddenly, after years of invisibility, the bamboo shoots up feet in a matter of weeks. Did the growth happen overnight? No, it was happening silently, beneath the soil, all along. Your life works the same way. The workouts, the journaling, the small daily disciplines may look like they're producing nothing, but one day the results will erupt. And when they do, people will call it sudden. You'll know it was hidden growth, patiently compounding. This hidden growth also explains why comparison is poisonous. You look at others and see visible results, the promotion, the physique, the recognition. You compare it to your invisible season and assume you're failing. But you're comparing their harvest to your planting. You're comparing their visible chapter to your hidden one. Seneca warned against this. How long will you delay to be wise? Until you have no power left? He knew that wisdom grows quietly before it shows outwardly. The fruit comes later. Don't abandon the process just because you can't see the fruit yet. Modern psychology echoes this truth. Habit formation research shows that results often lag behind effort. You may practice a new habit for weeks with no visible reward, then suddenly the benefits compound. James Clear, in Atomic Habits, calls this the plateau of latent potential. Imagine an ice cube in a freezing room. For a long time, the temperature rises, but the ice doesn't melt. Then, at one critical degree, it shifts instantly. Growth works the same way change accumulates invisibly until a threshold is reached. That invisible accumulation is where most people give up, not realizing they were one step away from breakthrough. This is why the Stoics valued patience so deeply. Epictetus taught his students not to demand immediate transformation, but to keep practicing virtue. You don't become wise in a day or disciplined in a week. You become it through steady practice, invisible to the world. First, say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. The doing is often unseen, but it is always shaping you. Consider athletes again. Years of training pass with little recognition. Most of their growth, endurance, discipline, resilience happens in empty gyms and quiet mornings. By the time the world notices, the transformation is already complete. The same is true for artists, entrepreneurs, parents, anyone building something meaningful. The invisible seasons are the most important ones. They are where character is formed, where resilience is built, where true mastery begins. But here's the challenge. Hidden growth feels discouraging because it lacks immediate feedback. You work, but you don't see change. You persist, but you don't feel progress. This is when doubt whispers, "What's the point?" And this is where Stoic wisdom must steady you. The point isn't applause. The point is alignment. If you are living according to principle, you are growing even if the mirror hasn't caught up yet. Hidden growth also protects you from arrogance. If every small effort brought immediate results, pride would swell. You would mistake luck for strength, quick wins for mastery. By hiding growth, life humbles you. It demands patience, persistence, and humility. It teaches you to value the process, not just the outcome. And when results finally surface, you appreciate them more deeply, because you know the years of silence behind them. Ask yourself, where are you in a hidden season? Is it your health, where changes are happening slowly? Is it your career, where your effort hasn't yet been noticed? Is it your personal growth, where you feel progress but others don't? Recognize that these invisible seasons are not wasted. They are sacred. They are where strength is quietly forged. The Stoics would encourage you not to demand proof from life every day. They would urge you to trust the invisible. Trust that discipline compounds, that patience builds character, that integrity always bears fruit. Just because others can't see your growth doesn't mean it isn't real. The Stoic path is about being, not performing. And in being, growth is inevitable even when unseen. So hold the line. Water the bamboo, lift the weight, write the words, do the small acts faithfully. Trust that hidden growth is shaping you even now. One day, the results will appear, and the world will call it sudden. But you will know it was happening all along, quietly, invisibly, in the hidden places where character is born. If persistence is the engine that drives you forward, patience is the fuel that keeps the engine from burning out. It is one of the most underrated virtues in modern life, yet one of the most necessary. The Stoics saw patience not as passive waiting, but as active endurance, holding steady in the storm, trusting that time, discipline, and nature itself are allies. Without patience, every difficulty feels unbearable. With it, every obstacle becomes survivable, even meaningful. Marcus Aurelius often reminded himself that nature does not hurry. Time is like a river made up of the events which happen, and a violent stream. For as soon as a thing has been seen, it is carried away, and another comes in its place. He knew that time moves whether we panic or not. Impatience doesn't accelerate the flow, it only exhausts us. Patience, on the other hand, allows us to move with time instead of thrashing against it. Modern society despises patience. We live in the era of instant gratification. Food delivered in minutes, information in seconds, entertainment on demand. We've been conditioned to expect results quickly and to interpret delay as failure. But life's most valuable outcomes, wisdom, mastery, health, love, cannot be rushed. They require seasons. A tree cannot be forced to bear fruit before its time. Likewise, your growth cannot be microwaved. It must be cultivated. Impatience kills more dreams than failure ever will, because it convinces people to abandon the process. Too early, patience is invisible power because it creates resilience in silence. Think about investing. The greatest wealth isn't made from quick trades, but from compounding over decades. Warren Buffett often says, his fortune is not due to genius but to patience, waiting for opportunities and letting investments grow. The same principle applies to everything: relationships, careers, self-mastery. Patience allows compounding to work in your favor, and patience sabotages it. Epictetus taught his students not to demand instant transformation, but to be faithful to practice. He compared growth to learning music. You don't become a musician by practicing once. You become one by playing daily, through frustration, through mistakes, through slow progress. In the same way, you don't become disciplined, courageous, or wise overnight. Patience is the virtue that sustains you when the results are not yet visible. Consider health. You don't lose years of weight gain in a week, nor do you rebuild strength in a month. Yet so many give up because they expect dramatic change too soon. They miss the subtle victories, the slightly easier breath, the slightly stronger lift, the slightly clearer mind. Patience is what turns those subtle victories into transformation. Without it, you quit before the fruit ripens. The same is true in relationships. Deep trust, loyalty, and intimacy aren't built in a handful of encounters. They are woven slowly through consistent honesty, small sacrifices, and shared endurance. Impatience in relationships leads to shallow connections people discard. Bonds at the first difficulty, never giving them time to mature. But when patience is present, relationships become resilient. They weather storms because the foundation has been given time to solidify. Work and mastery also demand patience. Artists may spend years developing their craft in obscurity before recognition comes. Entrepreneurs may endure multiple failures before finding their stride. Students may wrestle with concepts for months before clarity clicks. Each of these stories has a common thread: the patience to endure the season of invisibility. Those who abandon the path too soon never reach the reward. Those who wait, who trust the process, discover breakthroughs others never see. Patience is not weakness, it is strength under control. Anyone can panic, complain, or demand. Few can hold steady. Seneca once advised, "No man was ever wise by chance." Wisdom requires time, and time requires patience. When you practice patience, you aren't just waiting, you're strengthening the muscle of endurance, proving that your vision is stronger than your mood. In modern psychology, patience aligns with emotional regulation. People who can tolerate delayed gratification tend to experience better outcomes in nearly every area of life. The famous marshmallow test revealed that children who resisted the immediate marshmallow in exchange for a larger reward later grew into adults with stronger life outcomes. Patience isn't just moral advice, it's practical psychology. It predicts resilience, success, and self-respect. But let's be clear, patience is not passivity. The Stoics didn't advocate for sitting idly, hoping life would fix itself. Patience is active waiting. It's continuing to plant seeds, water them, and trust the season, even when nothing appears. Passive waiting is laziness. Stoic patience is disciplined endurance. It's the difference between sitting in despair and moving forward faithfully, even when progress is invisible. Here's the paradox. When you stop demanding instant results, you free yourself from the anxiety that paralyzes most people. You no longer measure your worth by today's visible outcomes. You measure it by today's faithfulness. Did you show up? Did you act in alignment with your values? If yes, then patience tells you the results will come in time. That shift relieves you of the burden of control. You no longer panic at delays because you understand they are part of the process. Think of the seasons. Winter looks barren, but beneath the soil, roots are alive. Spring brings growth. Summer brings fruit. Autumn brings harvest. Each season is necessary. You cannot skip one without weakening the whole cycle. Your life works the same way. Seasons of waiting, training, obscurity, these are not wasted. They are essential. Patience allows you to endure winter so that spring can arrive. Then patience abandons the field and misses the harvest entirely. Ask yourself, where are you rushing? Where have you demanded fruit before the roots were ready? Where have you abandoned the process because the results weren't instant? Reflect honestly. Patience doesn't mean doing nothing. It means staying faithful. It means trusting that the seeds you've planted will grow, even when the soil looks silent. The Stoics would remind you that time itself is indifferent. You can rage against it, or you can align with it. Rage exhausts you. Alignment empowers you. Patience is alignment with time. It says, I will move steadily, and I will not quit when progress is invisible. That stance is not glamorous, but it is powerful. It is what separates those who flirt with growth from those who embody it. So let patience become your hidden strength. Let it calm your anxiety, fortify your resilience, and carry you through the silent seasons. Because patience is not waiting for life to happen, it is trusting that every step, every repetition, every unseen effort is compounding into transformation. And when the results arrive, the world will call it sudden, but you'll know the truth. It was patience all along. Falling is inevitable. Life has a way of knocking you down when you least expect it. A business fails, a relationship ends, health falters, plans collapse. In those moments, it feels like the world has ended, like all your effort has been wasted. But the Stoics and every resilient person throughout history would remind you, falling is not the problem. Staying down is. What defines you is not how many times you avoid failure, but how many times you rise after it. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. Outside events will strike you down. You cannot control them, but you can always control how you respond. That response, whether to rise or surrender, is where your true strength is revealed." A setback is not the end of the story. It is simply the middle chapter, the turning point where you decide whether to be broken or to be forged. Angela Duckworth's research on grit confirms this Stoic truth. Talent alone does not predict long-term success. What matters is perseverance, the ability to rise again after setbacks. People with grit don't escape difficulty. They simply refuse to let difficulty define them. Every stumble becomes a lesson. Every rejection becomes redirection. Every failure becomes fuel. This is why persistence outlasts talent, because talent without resilience collapses at the first obstacle, while resilience transforms obstacles into opportunities. Think of history's great figures. Abraham Lincoln lost multiple elections, faced bankruptcy, and endured personal tragedy before becoming one of America's most respected presidents. Nelson Mandela spent 27 years in prison before leading South Africa out of apartheid. J.K. Rowling was rejected by a dozen publishers before Harry Potter transformed literature. None of these stories are tales of uninterrupted victory. They are stories of relentless rising. The world celebrates their triumphs, but those triumphs were born in the shadows of setbacks. The Stoics taught that setbacks themselves can be redefined. Epictetus, who endured slavery and disability, told his students, "Difficulties show what men are." A setback is not simply bad luck, it is a test, a mirror showing you who you are and what you can become. If you rise, you prove resilience. If you surrender, you prove fragility. The choice belongs to you, but rising is not just about action, it's about mindset. Too often, people interpret setbacks as evidence of inadequacy. They tell themselves, "I failed, so I am a failure." But this is a distortion. Failure is an event, not an identity. The Stoics would insist you separate what happened from what you are. You failed at something, but you are not failure itself. This distinction is crucial. If you internalize failure as identity, you will stop trying. If you treat it as feedback, you will keep moving. Consider the athlete who loses a crucial game. If they define themselves by that loss, their confidence collapses. If they treat the loss as feedback, they return to training sharper, hungrier, more prepared. Or the entrepreneur whose product flops. One interpretation, "I am incompetent." The other, I now know what doesn't work. This knowledge will fuel my next attempt. Same event, different response, radically different future. Setbacks also humble us. They strip away arrogance, illusions, and entitlement. They remind us that life is unpredictable and that nothing is guaranteed. This humility, though painful, is invaluable. It makes us more adaptable, more empathetic, more grounded. The person who has never faced setbacks may look polished on the surface, but they are fragile underneath. The person who has risen repeatedly carries an unshakable strength that only lived experience can forge. Modern culture often hides setbacks. Social media celebrates the highlight reel, rarely the bloopers. This creates a dangerous illusion that others succeed effortlessly while you alone struggle. But this is false. Behind every apparent overnight success are years of unseen failures. The sooner you accept that setbacks are universal, the freer you become. You stop seeing them as personal curses and start seeing them as shared human experiences. The Stoics even practiced imagining setbacks in advance. Marcus Aurelius would prepare himself each morning by saying, "Today you will meet with interference, ingratitude, insolence, disloyalty, ill will, and selfishness." By expecting setbacks, he was never shocked by them. Instead of asking, "Why me?" he asked, "Why not me? This is part of life." When setbacks arrived, he had already rehearsed his response. You can do the same. Anticipate difficulties, and when they come, rise with readiness instead of despair. But how exactly do you rise? First, acknowledge the pain. Stoicism does not mean denial. Losing a job, a loved one, a dream, these wounds cut deep. Pretending otherwise only buries the pain where it festers. Face it honestly. Name it. Allow yourself to feel it. But don't stay there. Second, reframe it. Ask, what can this teach me? How can this strengthen me? What can I build from this rubble? Third act. Take one small step, however shaky, back toward forward motion. Rising doesn't mean sprinting immediately. Sometimes it means crawling, but crawling is still rising. Consider someone who goes through divorce. The pain is real, the loss heavy, but rising means refusing to let that ending define the rest of their life. It means learning boundaries, self-respect, resilience, and then building a future stronger than the past. Or think of someone who loses their job. The setback is crushing, but rising might mean using the opportunity to pivot, to pursue a calling they once feared. In time, the setback reveals itself as the beginning of transformation. Here's the paradox. Often your greatest growth comes not despite setbacks, but because of them. Muscles strengthen only after being torn. Wisdom deepens only after mistakes. Courage expands only after fear. Setbacks don't block the path, they are the path. Marcus Aurelius phrased it best. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. What feels like ruin now may be the soil of your future strength. Ask yourself, where have setbacks defined you? Where have you stayed down too long? And what would it look like to rise, even shakily, even quietly? The first step doesn't need to be heroic. It only needs to be forward. Each time you rise, you reclaim power. Each time you rise, you weaken fear. Each time you rise, you prove to yourself that you are more than what knocked you down. The Stoics would remind you, Resilience is not about never falling. It's about becoming unbreakable by rising every time you do. Life will strike again and again, but each time you rise, you carry new wisdom, new strength, new proof that you are not fragile. In this way, setbacks become your training ground. They forge you into someone who no longer fears falling because you know you can always rise. So let setbacks come. Let them bruise you, humble you, challenge you, and then rise. Rise with patience, with resilience, with unshakable conviction. Because in the end, your story will not be remembered for how many times you fell, but for how many times you stood back up. There's a law in life as certain as gravity. What you focus on expands. Where your attention goes, energy flows. Focus is not just about productivity, it's about identity. Every time you choose what to focus on, you are also choosing who you are becoming. And when you hold that focus consistently, its effects compound just like money in an investment account. This is why the Stoics treated focus as sacred. They knew a scattered mind produces a scattered life, but a focused mind produces mastery. Seneca warned, "To be everywhere is to be nowhere." He understood the danger of divided attention. If you chase every distraction, you never build depth in anything. You become a surface-level participant in 1,000 things, but a master of none. Focus is the discipline of narrowing your energy to what truly matters, and then letting time multiply the results. Think of compound interest in finance. Small investments made consistently grow into great wealth over decades. The principle isn't dramatic leaps, it's steady accumulation. Focus works the same way. 15 minutes a day learning a skill doesn't feel like much, but over years it builds fluency. Reading a few pages a day doesn't seem transformative, but after a decade you've consumed libraries. Writing one paragraph, exercising for 20 minutes, practicing one chord on the guitar each act looks small in isolation. But focus compounds, turning drops into oceans. Modern culture, however, is designed to fracture focus. Notifications, advertisements, endless feeds, all are designed to hijack your attention. We tell ourselves multitasking is efficient, but science shows otherwise. Each time you switch tasks, you lose momentum, burn energy, and dilute effectiveness. A distracted mind can't compound because it resets constantly. Focus is not about doing more, it's about doing fewer things deeply. Marcus Aurelius modeled this in his writings. Despite ruling an empire, he reminded himself to simplify. If you seek tranquility, do less or do what's essential. Notice he didn't say do nothing, he said do what's essential. Focus is not idleness, it is deliberate. Concentration on what aligns with your values. By stripping away the non-essential, you give power to what remains. Look at practical examples. Two students both want to learn a language. One studies sporadically, distracted by apps and half-hearted attempts. The other dedicates 30 focused minutes daily. After a year, the difference is massive. One still struggles with basics. The other converses with ease. The difference wasn't intelligence, it was focus compounded over time. Or think of health. One person diets intensely for a month, then quits. Another makes small, consistent changes, daily walks, fewer processed foods, regular sleep. After years, the second person transforms their health. while the first cycles endlessly. Compounded focus beats bursts of intensity every time. This principle even applies to relationships. Small, consistent attention listening, showing gratitude. Being present builds trust and intimacy that grand gestures never replace. Neglect, even if unintentional, compounds to eroding trust, little by little, until the foundation crumbles. Focus compounds, positively or negatively. You are always compounding something. The question is whether it's growth or decay. The Stoics also connected focus to freedom. Epictetus told his students, "You become what you give your attention." 2. If you focus on gossip, you become petty. If you focus on fear, you become timid. If you focus on virtue, you become strong. Your character is shaped by what occupies your thoughts. In this sense, focus isn't just practical, it's existential. It determines who you are. Modern psychology supports this. Neuroscience shows that repeated focus literally rewires the brain through neuroplasticity. What you attend to strengthens its pathways. Focus on negativity, and your brain becomes wired for pessimism. Focus on gratitude, and it becomes wired for resilience. Focus isn't just about external results, it's about internal architecture. Your brain is shaped by what you repeatedly notice. But here's the challenge. Focus feels boring in the short term. It lacks the novelty and stimulation of distraction. That's why so many abandon it. But the rewards of focus are exponential. Just like compound interest, the greatest growth comes later, after consistent investment. The early stages feel invisible, but persistence unlocks breakthroughs. Most people quit before the compounding takes off. They mistake silence for stagnation. The wise trust the process. Consider the rule of 10,000 hours. While debated, the principle holds. Mastery requires consistent focus over years. Not just raw hours, but deliberate, focused practice. Great musicians, athletes, leaders, they don't scatter attention. They channel it. And over time, their focus compounds into skill so extraordinary that others call it talent. But talent is just focused time, compounded faithfully. Here's the paradox. Focus narrows your choices, but it expands your freedom. By saying no to distraction, you say yes to depth. By limiting attention to a few priorities, you unlock excellence. This feels restrictive at first, but liberating later. Scatter your attention, and you live a shallow life. Focus it, and you live a meaningful one. So how do you cultivate the compounding effect of focus? First, clarify what matters most. Without clarity, focus has no anchor. Ask yourself, what are the few things that, if done consistently, would transform my life? Second, eliminate the non-essential. Guard your attention like treasure. Turn off notifications. Say no to meaningless commitments. Remove temptations. Third, start small but consistent. Don't chase intensity. Chase repeatability. 15 focused minutes every day beats 3 hours once a month. Fourth, trust time. Don't demand immediate results. Trust that compounding will reward you, as it always does. The Stoics would urge you to treat focus not just as a tool, but as a virtue. To live scattered is to live enslaved by noise. To live focused is to live free. Focus transforms not just what you achieve, but who you are becoming. And who you are becoming is the greatest investment of all. Ask yourself now, What am I compounding? Daily, am I compounding distraction, regret, and decay? Or am I compounding discipline, strength, and clarity? The answer will shape your future more than any single decision, because life is not decided in grand gestures. It is decided in the daily focus that compounds quietly, invisibly, until suddenly the results are undeniable. So guard your focus, honor it, direct it wisely, because every hour you spend is either compounding toward regret or compounding toward greatness. The Stoics knew which choice to make. Do you? Most people chase rewards they can hold in their hands: wealth, titles, possessions, applause. They imagine that once they have enough of these trophies, life will finally feel complete. But the Stoics knew a truth that still cuts through centuries of noise. The real prize of life isn't what you accumulate. It's who you become in the process. Seneca wrote, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more, that is poor." What he meant is simple. External rewards are temporary, but inner character is lasting. Money can be lost, titles stripped, possessions stolen, but the strength, wisdom, and clarity you cultivate cannot be taken. They are yours, inseparable from your identity. The true reward of every struggle is not the trophy at the end, it's the transformation. Within, think about your greatest challenges. At the time, they may have felt like punishments: the failed relationship, the lost job, the rejection, the setback. But looking back, what do you remember most? Often it's not the pain itself, but the person you became through it. You became stronger, more compassionate, more disciplined. The external circumstances faded, but the internal growth remained. That growth, that identity shift, is the prize. Modern culture makes this hard to see. We're bombarded with messages equating worth to possessions, status, or recognition. The job title defines you. The house proves your success. The likes and followers measure your value. But these markers are fragile. Lose them, and your identity crumbles if it was built on them. This is why so many successful people feel empty. They won the trophies but never built themselves. The applause fades, and they are left hollow. The Stoics took the opposite approach. Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome, constantly reminded himself that power and fame were fleeting. He meditated not on his empire, but on humility, discipline, and virtue. He knew the real prize wasn't ruling millions, it was ruling himself. Epictetus, born a slave, carried no titles or possessions. Yet his teachings endure because he embodied resilience and wisdom. His freedom wasn't external, it was internal. Both men at opposite ends of society arrived at the same truth. Who? You become as greater than what you hold. Consider athletes. Winning a medal is fleeting, the applause lasts minutes. But the discipline, resilience, and identity forged through years of training, that stays forever. Or entrepreneurs. The business may succeed or fail, but the lessons, confidence, and character built through the journey remain. Or parents. Children eventually leave home, but the patience, love, and strength developed in raising them remain as part of who they are. The external reward may fade, but the internal prize endures. Carl Jung captured this idea when he said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." This is the Stoic vision as well. Life is not about chasing trophies to impress others. It's about peeling away illusions, confronting fear, enduring struggle, and in the process, discovering the depth of who you can be. Becoming is the point. Everything else is secondary. But here's the paradox. You cannot fully see who you're becoming until you've endured enough struggle to reveal it. Comfort conceals potential. Discomfort reveals it. Without resistance, muscles never grow. Without challenges, character never strengthens. Without losses, wisdom never deepens. The person you are becoming is hidden inside the challenges you often wish would go away. What you think is punishment is often the training ground for transformation. So, how do you focus on this real prize in a world obsessed with external ones? First, shift your measurement. Instead of asking, "What did I get today?" ask, "Who did I become today?" Did you become more disciplined or more distracted? More courageous or more fearful? More authentic or more performative? This measure keeps you anchored to growth, not applause. Second, embrace struggle as part of the process. When obstacles come, remind yourself, this is not stealing from me, it is shaping me. Marcus Aurelius put it best. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. If you only chase ease, you miss the very experiences that make you who you are meant to be. Third, release attachment to outcomes. Focus on what you can control: your actions, your values, your responses. If you win, celebrate. If you lose, learn. In both cases, the prize is the same. You became stronger in the attempt. The scoreboard doesn't matter as much as the character you build while playing. Ask yourself now, who are you becoming through your struggles? Are you becoming bitter or resilient? Are you becoming shallow or wise? Are you becoming someone you respect or someone you avoid in the mirror? These questions cut deeper than any external success because they reveal the truth. You can appear successful yet despise yourself, or appear ordinary yet walk with unshakable dignity. Which life would you rather live? The Stoics believed the answer was obvious. A life of virtue, lived with courage and clarity, was the greatest prize. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire, but his writings reveal a man obsessed not with conquest, but with self-mastery. Seneca advised wealth and power, but always circled back to discipline and wisdom. Epictetus, who had none of those external prizes, still left a legacy of unbreakable inner freedom. Together, they prove the same point. External rewards fade. Inner character endures. So let this be your compass. When you face difficulty, don't ask only how to get through it. Ask how to grow through it. When you achieve success, don't ask only what you gained. Ask who you became in the process. Because at the end of life, the house, the title, the applause will mean little. But the person you've become, that will speak louder than anything. The real prize is not out there. It's in here. It's you. The you that is forged through discipline, revealed through courage, strengthened through patience, clarified through silence, humbled by failure, and elevated by persistence. The Stoics knew this truth 2,000 years ago. It remains true today. Stop chasing what fades. Start becoming what lasts. You've walked through the storms of distraction, the silence of hidden growth, the weight of setbacks, and the discipline of persistence. You've seen how the Stoics confronted failure, how they trusted the process, how they chose courage in the face of fear, and how they refused the lies of comfort. And if you followed closely, one truth should echo louder than the rest. The point of all this is not to collect more things, but to become more of yourself. The real prize has always been transformation. Look back at what we've uncovered together. Time is your most precious asset. Waste it and you waste yourself. Guard it and you gain freedom. Failure is a teacher. Don't hide from it, learn from it. Distraction is the silent assassin. Cut it off before it consumes your life. Persistence matters more than inspiration. Keep walking when the crowd has stopped. Patience is power. Let your unseen growth compound. In silence, setbacks are not endings. They are invitations to rise stronger. Focus compounds like interest. What you water daily will eventually grow into a forest. And above all, the real prize is who you become. The Stoics never promised ease. They promised strength, the kind forged in fire, not comfort. And that is what you are being invited into. Now, every day you wake up is another chance to focus on what you can control, to reject the noise, to honor your word, to take one more step when you want to quit. These aren't grand gestures. They're choices. Quiet, ordinary, daily choices. But compounded, they transform you into someone unshakable. Now comes the question, what will you do with all of this? Knowledge without action is nothing more than entertainment. Philosophy was never meant to be words on a page, it was meant to be lived. The Stoics didn't write so you could admire their thoughts. They wrote so you could apply them, so you could face your life with greater courage and clarity. So here is your call to action. Focus on you until you win. Not in a selfish way, but in a disciplined way. Win over distraction. Win over hesitation. Win over fear. Win over the parts of yourself that prefer comfort to growth. Because when you win those battles, the external victories take care of themselves. And don't walk this road alone. That's why this channel exists. Stoic Journal is here to give you not just ideas, but a steady reminder that you're not the only one walking this path. Every video, every reflection, every lesson is crafted to help you sharpen your mind, strengthen your resilience, and live deliberately in a world built to distract you. If this message resonates with you, if you felt the pull of restlessness, if you've grown tired of wasting time, if you're ready to rise after setbacks, then I invite you to stay with us. Subscribe to the channel. Join this community of people committed to growth, not comfort. Share this with someone who needs. A reminder that their story isn't finished, that their best self is still waiting on the other side of persistence. And don't stop here. Go deeper, revisit the lessons, apply them, journal about them. Choose one practice today, just one, and begin. Maybe it's cutting an hour of distraction. Maybe it's keeping a promise to yourself. Maybe it's rising again where you've fallen before. Whatever it is, start now. Not tomorrow, not when you feel ready. Now. Because now is all you ever truly have. The world will keep pulling at you with noise, with fear, with comfort. But you don't have to bend to it. You can stand, steady and strong like the Stoics before you. And when you do, you'll discover something extraordinary. You don't need the world's approval to feel whole. You don't need perfect circumstances to live fully. You don't need rescue from anyone else. You have everything you need already too. Endure, to persist, to rise, to win. So, I'll leave you with this. The real measure of your life is not what you get, but who you become. Become someone you respect. Become someone unshakable. And when you do, you'll realize that you've already won. If you're ready to continue this journey, click subscribe, turn on notifications, and join us for the next lesson. Because this isn't just a channel, it's a path. A path from noise to clarity, from comfort to strength, from distraction to focus. The Stoics walked it before us. Now it's your turn. Your time is short. Your potential is vast. The only question left is, will you rise?